Hello and welcome to the Capital Games Podcast. I'm the Wiz.
And I'm Zero.
Zero. How are you doing this week?
Doing all right. Last night finished up Harvestella, the main game that is, and ultimately, my conclusion is that most of my opinions generally have not changed from my initial impressions from last week and everything. The game is mostly JRPG first, and a farming game second. So there's that. I will correct myself about the relationships part because the relationship option opens at post game, where when you complete all of the social link style quests to get to know all the characters in the game, you'll basically get a quest to offer a ring to the person that you want your character to kind of shack up with and everything. So I will stand corrected on that because just I did not realize that that was a thing that has to wait until end game.
Is there a build up to the relationship aspect of the end game, or is it just like a choice that you would make when it comes about?
There's really no build up. It's just yeah, just decide on who you want to write like a relationship letter with, and then just once you send it off in the mail, you will have to wait. I think a few in-game days for the recipient to write a response back, and then it'll be a little quest of okay, it seems like you're serious about this. Let's talk at this specific time, depending on when that character's schedule is free or whatever, and then just I haven't actually finished the quest. I'm actually right at the beginning of it and everything, but yeah, just I presume it'll just be a dialogue scene. You pop them the magic relationship ring, and boom, there you go. Your characters are shacked up. But yeah, I still think it's a game that would probably sit at a solid 7 out of 10 if you have to put into like numerical values and stuff like that. But I still think it's a fun game. Combat is still brainless towards the end. I mean, there are some sort of some thought in like combos and team compositions for like perks and perks and stat boosts that some characters will offer for your team and stuff like that, and whichever classes you want to assign yourself. Because there's some classes that'll do things like you have a 20% faster rate of accumulating um, breaking damage, which is like their little staggering mechanic that they've got in the game. So I mean, like if you're setting up more like a heavy staggering build, then you're going to want to set yourself up with classes that do nothing but help you stack up the staggering damage super quick to get that break message to get the increased damage and everything. So yeah, just if so, there is a little bit of thought in the combat, but the actual combat in action, it's a little brainless because it's more avoiding the AOE's, getting in close, bashing the enemies if you're using a melee class, or if you're using a distanced and range class, then you just have to be within range to actually use your guns, magic wands, or whatever choose as your class and everything.
Were you satisfied with the gameplay mix in the game? When you initially were interested in the game, did you expect the mix to be what it was uh, with the final product?
Honestly, Square's marketing was a bit weird because the way they had framed the game with all the marketing material, like the trailers, the little videos talking about how the game works and stuff, they were more focused on the farming side of it. So I thought, okay, this looks like it's going to be a Rune Factory style game that is generally front loaded heavy on the farming, with kind of adventuring and the RPG thing being kind of like a secondary thing that you kind of do to gather secondary ingredients to make other things, or having to go into dungeons and mine rare metals because that's where you can get the metals only strictly in dungeons and stuff like that. And that was kind of how I came into it expecting. I was just like, okay, this looks like it's going to be more of a Rune Factory kind of game. when in all honesty, it's completely flip-flopped around in actual practice. It's more action JRPG up front, with the farming stuff being kind of a secondary thing, because the farming is generally where you're going to make most of your money and profit. It's also going to be where you end up generally farming stuff to make meals that you'll take with you into dungeons, or processing vegetables and fruits into juices that you can use to heal yourself up during dungeons and bosses and everything. For me, I think I was a little more baffled by Square's choice to go heavy on talking about the farming piece, when that's really secondary to all the adventuring and the action JRPG stuff that you're doing in Harvestella. So for me, I was just kind of a bit of confusion, going, okay, guys, why were you advertising this as this is a farming heavy RPG? Nothing but farming in this game. Yeah, you go on adventures, but don't worry about that. It was just like, you guys just should have concentrated on just selling the game for what it is, because it's it's a fine game. It's not a great game, but it's not a bad game either. It's just fine.
Do you feel that $60 for this game is a justifiable purchase for what you played?
Honestly, 60, I could see experienced farming RPG players kind of balking at that price. And if that's how they feel, I would say maybe you might be better off waiting for like a sale where the game drops to like $30. I will say this: I believe that the Nintendo Switch copy is on sale right now for the GameStop Black Friday sales, and it's down to 47.90. That's a little bit of a price break, and I would say anyone who's a bit value conscious, that $48 would be an okay price. So if you kind of want a farming game that looks kind of pretty, then maybe $48 ain't a bad deal, especially since the art design and music are just, and I think that's really what kept me really engaged with the game in general, just because the music and the art design is really good.
Good. Okay. So your final thought is what?
If you're looking for a JRPG with some light farming, and you absolutely have to have a little bit of eye candy with just good art design, then maybe $60 is worth your while. If that seems a little steep, maybe consider waiting on a sale for it. Especially just if you think $60 for a JRPG with some light farming in it is a bit pricey, then um, maybe partake in the GameStop sale for Switch, where the game is $48 for a hard copy, or maybe wait for a Steam sale, maybe around the springtime or something, and pick up the game on PC for maybe $30. I don't know how low they plan to slash it on PC, but just maybe that's what you do. You just kind of sit and wait on it and everything. But
Oh.
overall, I think it's just a solid 7. If we're going on a 10-point scale, just it's a good game. It's not a great game. It's not a terrible game either. It's just kind of right in the middle.
Zero. So it's good that you enjoyed the game. I guess it wasn't exactly what you were expecting, but you were overall good with it. Correct?
Yeah, yeah. For anyone who wants kind of an hour count, if you're one of those hours per dollar enjoyed sort of people, I clocked in right about 60 hours with just completing the main game, and that does include all the character social link quests as well too, and also all the um, side quests that were sort of on the way for of me doing the main story quest and everything. So now I've just got a bunch of post game stuff to do, and with the post game stuff, I am probably going to estimate that might maybe take me 10 or 15 hours, and I'll probably be done with the post game by end of the week and have 100% of the achievements unlocked on the PC version. So
Okay.
yeah, just just for anyone out there who's one of those dollars per hour spent sort of people. So
All right.
if the idea of a 70-hour JRPG with some farming sounds great to you, then yeah, just you're looking at 70 hours for a $60 game.
All right. Well, that's good to know. And if you're interested in Harvestella, it's out now on PC and Switch. No word if it's going out on the other consoles, right? I would assume that at some point it might, but
Yeah, I don't know if there's like a temporary exclusivity deal because Nintendo maybe helped co-publish it or something. I don't know, but we'll probably see something if the game didn't have gangbusters numbers on Switch. That there might be like a hey, we're doing a multi-platform release coming out to PS4 and Xbox One or something. So we'll just have to see what happens in the next couple months and. I'm presuming if it doesn't sell great in the fourth quarter, we'll probably see some sort of announcement maybe in January.
all right. Well, let's move on to the news. There's still news that happened this week. Last week in our Question Zero, we talked about what we felt was going to be nominated for Game of the Year at the Game Awards. Well, our timing was good because it turned out that this past Monday, yesterday as the time of recording, they announced the nominees for this year's Game Awards that's going to be in December. We won't go through all of them, but we will definitely hit the main one right now, which is Game of the Year. The 2022 nominees for Game of the Year are A Plague Tale Requiem, Elden Ring, God of War Ragnarok, Horizon Forbidden West, Stray, and Xenoblade Chronicles 3. There were some people who were kind of disappointed with the list, but otherwise, most think it's fairly solid. Zero, what do you think about the list of games that are revealed to be nominated for Game of the Year at the Game Awards this year?
So yeah, I'm surprised I got 4 out of 6.
Okay, that is true. I mean, I didn't expect Stray to get nominated. To be absolutely honest, I saw you saying Stray, and I was like, really, Stray? Okay. And I kind of was surprised by Xenoblade to a certain extent, but then again, I don't know. Like I was fairly certain Vampire Survivors was going to get in, just because of how much it's been talked about with not only in early access, but with Steam Deck that came out, and how a lot of people are playing that on the Steam Deck and enjoying it. So and a lot of the journalists who cover the industry and also are jury members who do the nominees, I could have sworn like some of them would have been like all for this and have been playing that game all year. So that's why I thought Vampire Survivors was going to get in. I was surprised when it didn't, but oh well, that's what happens.
Yeah, and Xenoblade Chronicles 3 was kind of a fun, pleasant surprise because just when it released, I was like, okay, it's a JRPG-ass JRPG, so I expect no one to give a fuck about it because a lot of the anti-weeb people out there are probably like, ew, gross, JRPG with anime artwork, gross, fucking disgusting. So that was what I figured would be the case, but I guess anime talks, and Xenoblade is in the running.
Yeah, I think Xenoblade got it because it was either that or Kirby would have probably gotten it, and with that, I know there were some fans of Kirby and the Forgotten City. That's what it's called, right? Kirby and the Forgotten City?
Yeah.
Yeah. There were some fans, but I didn't hear an outpouring of love for it when it came out. It was one of those games that just died out as soon as it was released. And it did well, but talk about it ceased after that point. Xenoblade, I believe, had a lot of, at least JRPG reviewers were very happy with it and very happy with the improvements that it made. So I guess that's where I guess it just seemed like a Nintendo game had to get in. That's the only thing I can think of with this. Like a Nintendo game had to get in here, and that was their choice. And I guess Splatoon 3 is too much like Splatoon 1 and 2, so they didn't go that route, which, okay, fine. But yeah, that's That's it with Xenoblade. I said that Forbidden West was going to get in, and I'm still a little surprised that it did. Like, that was one where I knew in the back of my head it's probably going to get in, but I would have probably rather it not, just because of, again, what I look at it as the people who cover the business, who are quote unquote influencers of the gaming industry. There was zero talk about Horizon Forbidden West after it was released, like zero. After it was released, it got a little bit of talk. People complained that it was too handholdy, and then Elden Ring came out, and no one talked about it anymore. It was done. It was gone. So, yeah. And A Plague Tale. I mean, I know the first game got a lot of great reviews, but the second one, I'm hearing mixed things. Like, it's gotten favorable reviews, sure, but a lot of people had technical problems with that game. If I recall correctly.
Yeah, you had characters who were hitching on some of the level geometry,
Mhm.
just some really, really weird one-off bugs that ended up with some people having to kind of reset to a checkpoint and hope to God that the characters wouldn't repeat the same error that they got maybe stuck on a piece of level geometry or something like that. Just really, really weird bugs. I believe some of them have been fixed since, but yeah, just that was a game that kind of surprised me. I was just like, yeah, I'm kind of surprised it got the nomination, considering that the initial reception when it originally released was a bit mixed because some people had encountered major game-breaking bugs in playing the game for a review, and then you had some people who had no bugs at all and just were like, oh yeah, just um, a great game that builds on the original Plague Tale, so I like the game. And then of course the people who had bugs were just like, hey, the game's okay, but some of these bugs need to be addressed, and we'll rate it as like a 6 or a 7. So just not an awesome game, but just if they can fix the bugs, then I think the game can get it.
Of the six, what I didn't realize after they did the announcement is that apparently the public can vote for what best game is this year. You can vote for all of the categories this year, which I don't know if I know Player's Voice was the one where I thought everyone voted on, the common player voted for. I didn't realize they allowed you to vote for everything this year now. So,
Yeah.
with that being said, what do you think will win this year?
Oh, that one's a dead giveaway. It's gonna be Elden Ring.
Is it? Are you sure about that now? Because
I think so, mostly because you're gonna have the tryhards rallying up places like 4chan and shit like that, and go, "Oh, yo, you gotta vote for Elden Ring, or else you're not a true gamer." And it's just gonna be a fucking shit show.
yeah, I mean, Sekiro won 2019. Yeah, so I can see your point there, that the diehards will probably want to get this to win. Do we? Here's the question I have. Like, I don't know what the voting process is like. I mean, are they just using everyone's vote as equal, and whoever has the most votes win, or are they going to weight the votes towards the press, and then they'll count like the common vote as like a tiebreaker or something?
Yeah, that's. I was gonna say, I think the latter is my thought methodology on this, because I know that just for the past couple years, there have been some people who have like bitched and groaned that oh god, just these panelists and judges and jury members are they're all fucking bought off, and
Mhm.
especially if it was a game that the gamers TM didn't care for, it would just be like oh, everyone's bought off, this was bullshit, game such and such should have won.
Mhm.
So I think the reason they're opening the polls up is to make it seem like the public has a voice on the matter, but I think ultimately it's just going to come down to being used as a tiebreaker mechanism, that
Mhm.
it's just going to be a oh man, just we've got the judges deadlocked between, and this is me hypothetically speaking, so don't quote me on this, for the listeners out there. Let's say we have a deadlock between Elden Ring and God of War Ragnarok. Then likely they're going to go, okay, well, let's see how the public feels on this. Oh, votes are going towards Elden Ring. Okay, I guess Elden Ring takes it.
Okay.
So,
See, here's the thought process I'm having right now. If it's that way, where they weight the decision for best game towards what the critics and the journalists say, then it being a 1-to-1, one vote matters no matter who it is. I can see God of War winning. And mainly because journalists and the people who cover the game industry are so dead set on From Software games supposed to have difficulty sliders or difficulty choices or easy mode, or there needs to be more accessibility and all these things. Like, they're asking for all these things that basically FromSoft has essentially said no to, without saying no. They just keep making the same game. But I could see them penalizing Elden Ring for that and giving it to God of War because it's more accessible, because it's easier, because it holds your hand more, and I can see if that's how it is. If it's they weight the decision towards the journalist, I can see an upset where God of War Ragnarok wins. Now, if it's a 1-to-1 thing, Elden Ring wins, no doubt, because Elden Ring has a much more passionate fan base than I think God of War does. God of War has a passionate fan base, don't get me wrong, but the FromSoft people are crazy. Like, these people, you don't want to fuck with. Like, they'll turn out. They'll make sure that Elden Ring wins to this. And as much as there are God of War stands, there are people on Twitter who are complaining about God of War, and specifically, from what I keep hearing, is how much the game holds your hand, essentially. So I can see, like I said, if the voting process is one vote is one vote, no matter who it is, Elden Ring wins, no problem. If it's not, for some reason, I can see God of War Ragnarok squeaking a win. That's my thought process. What do you think of that thought process?
I can see that being as plausible. So I mean, just I'm not gonna dismiss it outright or anything. But
Do you think it's likely?
it's a likely impossible scenario in my opinion. Yeah, it'll be kind of hard to say because you've got a whole bunch of major outlets and everything, who are on the jury panel and everything. But then you have some contrarian voices too, like Jeff Gersman is on the jury panel as well too.
Mhm.
Maybe I should revise my thought.
Uh-oh.
Maybe that if they go with the latter, where just the public's votes are a tiebreaker, but the majority of the weighting scale goes to the jury panel. Let's say maybe it could be a possible coin toss between Elden Ring and God of War.
Okay. I can see your thought process in that. But I think the main thing we're getting at is it's between Elden Ring and God of War. And the other four are just happy to be nominated at this point. Let's get into some of the other categories real quick. I know there's a couple you want to cover.
Go
ahead.
There is one I want to clown on real fast, mostly because it's just kind of a funny thing. With Light, from the whole Helena Taylor situation with Bayonetta 3, I wish, just as kind of a snub and a troll towards Helena Taylor, that they had Jennifer Hale as one of the nominees for Best Performance.
Yeah.
That would have been just chef's kiss level trolling.
I'm betting the people who were compiling this list wanted to actively avoid that controversy. Like, really just avoid it altogether. And since Jennifer Hale didn't blow people away, like she did good, I hear, but she didn't blow people away with her performance. I think that's okay to do. I mean, that's fine.
Yeah. Though I will give them points if she's the one who presents the for best performance, that will be some epic trolling.
Nah.
I will probably be laughing my ass off. Or
Or it's her and Helena Taylor, and they just have a fight in the middle of the entire thing.
oh, you mean like the Will Smith Chris Rock moment?
Yes. The real Bayonetta wants to open the envelope, bitch. Like, ah.
Oh god, I would die. I would
man,
literally die.
that's when you know that the Game Awards is in trouble when they have to resort to Oscars theatrics to gain news and headlines. But the ones that are nominated, I mean, no surprise, Christopher Judge. Not surprised the actress from Immortality got nominated. And I guess Sonny Soljic, is he the person that plays Arteus in God of War?
Atreus? I don't know. I'd have to look him up.
Okay, but yeah, like these are essentially, except for I would say Men Engage, who is in Immortality. These are just the who's who of voice actors and stuff that do these games. Usually, Ashley Birch is in like a bunch of voice acting. Like she's more known as Tiny Tina than anything, but I have to keep reminding myself that she's Aloy in Horizon Forbidden West. I keep forgetting about that. But yeah, this is like a who's who. This is not much of a surprise. Game direction. Okay, I'm a little surprised with the game direction here. I'm not surprised with Elden Ring. I'm not surprised with Immortality. But the other three, I've heard a fair amount of complaints about the certain things that these games do, or what they do in the game that leads them to their inevitable conclusion. I'm a little surprised that these three games are games that are in best game direction.
I've heard some people kind of talk about how God of War is just kind of that they play it safe and it's a little bit predictable. But I mean, just as much as I hate to disappoint people, predictability sells. Just as much as people like to bitch and complain that just they want new, shiny, and different things, if you deviate too far from the familiar, then some people will just gripe and bitch. So just God of War just being in best direction because it played it safe. That's kind of a no-brainer in my book.
Well, I'm not one of those who I don't mind something that's predictable getting a best direction nomination. That's not really the problem or the fault of the director. That's more of a writer's problem that they actually have that issue. What I'm more or less talking about is how the game, from what I've heard, because I have not played it, from what I've heard, like the game is dull at times. There are pacing issues, and the decision to give you hints all the time for certain things is a bit of a bother, where a much better game would give you more context clues, or basically would make it a little more ingenious for you to figure out puzzles. That's where I'm like, that's weird. So
Yeah, and to that, Horizon Forbidden West, while I did enjoy the game, there were definitely some moments that there were some pacing issues in my opinion, just where it'd be like, hey, you need to wait, just a day before you can talk to this other person, even though like the person's right in front of me. And it's just like, really, guys, you're gonna make me fucking burn the day off and then go run around and find this person to talk to? Okay, whatever. I guess I'll play it your way.
Okay.
And then and Stray being there, as much as the game does generally a good job on like highlighting ladders and platforms that your little cat can kind of hop onto and stuff like that, there were some places where just it was legitimately confusing to try to figure out like, hey, is that platform actually reachable, or is that just platform just a decoration? Because there were some moments where just I had just gotten completely lost, going, okay, I don't get where the fuck I'm supposed to go, and I would have to kind of sleep it off for a day, and then the next day I'd come back and go, oh, okay, got it, whatever.
Okay.
I should have noticed this last night, but whatever.
Okay. One other thing I'm going to point out: best narrative. A Plague Tale, Requiem, Elden Ring, God of War, Ragnarok, for Horizon Forbidden West, Immortality. Do From Software games even have narratives?
Yeah, that was a nomination I also kind of disagreed with, mostly because From Software games, they're great at leaving little bits and pieces of lore scattered
Right.
around the world, and
Yes.
you as the player are supposed to kind of come to your own conclusions. But to say that that's a narrative design thing that's supposedly brilliant, it just doesn't fit. I mean, if you want to count it towards like building a universe, sure, but it's not really great at storytelling because it still just ultimately relies on you as the player to just figure it out.
Right.
So,
like, I don't mind a complex plot. I really don't. But if I have to go to a YouTube video to pick out the lore because I didn't catch it the first time I played it, that's not really strong narrative. It might be good world building, and it might be good to flesh out the world that you are in, but it doesn't tell a story. So I thought that was very strange that it got best narrative. The other four, I'm not surprised, but that's one I had an issue with. Are there any others that you want to talk about real quick?
I wanted to highlight the best fighting game category, mostly because of just one very, very strange choice that was dropped in there. So the nominees for this year are DNF Duel, JoJo's Bizarre Adventure All-Star Battle R, King of Fighters 15, Multiverses, and Sifu. Let's play guess which one doesn't quite fit into this category.
I'm more okay with Sifu being there than JoJo's Bizarre Adventure, because JoJo's Bizarre Adventure isn't that just a repackaging of an old game?
No, it's a 2D fighter. It's done by CyberConnect from Bandai Namco, but the balance isn't necessarily perfect, mostly because just I've heard some chatter that some characters are completely busted, and if you get into like a matchup with a character that just isn't balanced correctly against this OP character, then you may as well just kind of forfeit the match. How true that is, I don't know, because I don't know the game. So, but yeah, just that one is through and through a 2D fighter. So.
Well, I know it is, but my issue is that it's not an original game. It's basically a repackaging of the PS3 game that came out.
Yeah.
So that's my issue with that. I don't think that should be in there. And I also agree Sifu doesn't really need to be there either. But in my opinion, either just make it DNF Duel, King of Fighters, and Multiverses. But even I would say King of Fighters doesn't deserve to be in there, personally. Because I bought the game, and the online has not worked since I've bought it. So,
oh yeah, and that's a point I agree with too, because the random matchmaking is still broken to this day.
Yeah.
And the wild part is, during Evo this year, they announced that they would be doing like a crossplay update sometime early next year, and I'm sitting here going, okay, well, you gonna fix that busted matchmaking by then, or are you gonna fix it before? Because the game's not in a great state right now, and you guys really need to go back and fix that, because when your player base has to rely on going to a King of Fighters unofficial Discord and then join up a like lobby day where you try to figure out which person's lobby to join, that's not the sign of a very good fighting game, especially if you want to build like an online community with it. So yeah, it was that one was kind of a head scratcher for me as well too, with just how busted the game is currently.
Yeah. Okay, so is there any other categories you want to go over real quick, or?
Not really. Just I think I think most of the categories are either kind of, yeah, these are a bunch of gimmies, um, or in some of the like social media categories, I'm just like,
Yeah.
who the fuck is that person, or who the fuck is this esports team or esports coach?
Yeah, the esports stuff, I'm like, I don't care. It's like, okay, cool, that's cool, whatever. I'm fine, like whatever. But the content creator of the year thing, this is where like I normally do not care, but the fact that Nebellion got nominated. Now, I know some of you on Twitter love Nebellion. Okay, I get it, but content creator is a stretch with him. I mean, a stretch. All he did basically was, hey, this news came out. Here it is. That's it. That's all he did.
Yeah, or he would add light commentary like, hey, I think this piece of news is interesting.
Yeah, essentially. That's really not content creation. And my my feeling is he's going to win this. I think he's going to win this because people can vote on this too. And there were plenty of people who was like, oh, Nebellion left. Oh, my God. Press F for respect. Oh, a true champ. I'm like, what? Guys.
Yeah, I think I even saw some people calling him, quote, a titan of the industry.
Yes, I saw that too.
Fucking what?
Yeah. I'm like, hold up, people. But yeah. I know Ludwig is a popular streamer. Am I right on that?
Yeah,
But-
he's pretty popular.
But for some reason, I'm looking at QT Cinderella and thinking I think she's going to get this, if not her Nebellion. I think that's what's going to happen. Either Nebellion's going to win it because enough people on Twitter are going to be like, "Oh, we gotta get Nebellion back. Maybe if he wins this award, he'll go back to doing that and not making money." I can sense people trying that and thinking that might work, but either that or I think it's QT Cinderella because, well, I hate to say this, but what's the difference between QT Cinderella and the other four nominated?
Girl, woman.
Bingo, bingo, and you got those simps. You got to put them in order. So, yeah. Not that I'm saying she doesn't deserve it. She may. I don't follow any of these people, but I really found it funny that Nebellion got nominated when he doesn't create any content. I thought the point of a content creator is that you make content. I mean, what the? Anyway, I'm back. I'm gonna get off that. Yeah. So those are the nominees categories. I think the most nominations went to God of War Ragnarok, followed by Elden Ring, and I think it was Horizon Forbidden West. I think also got 7. So those 3 are the ones that got the most nominations. Who do you think will rack up the wins?
In my opinion, I think it's going to be Elden Ring.
Okay.
Mostly because just everyone's going to be like, oh my god, the world, the music, the narrative, so good.
Yeah. I think you're right. I think the most win either it will get the most wins or it will tie with most wins with God of War, but Elden Ring will get best game. I think is what's going to happen at this point. So, yeah. That will be December 8th. Before that comes up, we will discuss what we think will get announced at the Game Awards, but we will do that at another date. Let us move on to the next topic, Zero. Kind of a light week, but we've got some topics to bite into, so let's get into it. Today, it was announced that pre-orders are starting up for the PSVR 2. We didn't discuss this when this was announced, but we thought it might be a good idea to go over it now. The pre-orders, again, is news in itself, but what we want to discuss is the price. It was announced over a month ago that the price for the PSVR 2 is going to be $550, and you are required to have a PS5 in order to use it. So in order to get VR on your PlayStation, it's going to cost you about $1,100 to do so. Zero, what do you think about the PSVR 2 and its pricing structure?
As someone who got my initial PSVR kit for PS4 as a gift from my former boss,
Hmm.
which I thought was an awesome gesture from my boss, because I think that year I had aced my yearly review, and she was like, "Hey man, just I know you're a big video gamer and things have been tight on the budget, so here you go, giant care package of a bunch of PSVR games and a PSVR head unit."
Nice. That's nice,
um,
man. I got
oh
pizza.
yeah, it was a huge gesture from her, so and I'm eternally thankful. But as a person who quite loved PSVR, um, even though I don't play around on my PSVR unit that much anymore, 550 for just the base kit is gonna be pretty pricey for most people. I mean, yeah, I get it. It's got some new whiz bang features like dual 4K displays on the optic screens. You've got the exterior cameras that'll help you not bump into your actual material possessions that are in your living room or your gaming room or whatever. Um, I mean, it's got a nice feature set. I'm not going to deny that, but just especially with the economic downturn and everything, just I think it's going to be real tough to find people who are just going to wanting to dive in just full bore and everything and just go, yeah, sure. Let me drop another $550 for like a VR unit and
Yeah.
everything. And it's even worse if you want one game to go with it because um, PlayStation is doing a bundle that includes Horizon Call of the Mountain VR, and that ends up bumping the bundle to like a whopping $600. So
Jeez.
um, even still, just with that with that kind of cash and everything, just I just don't see wide adoption happening. And of course, just I can see what happens when maybe next summer arrives. Oh, due to low adoption rates, we're just gonna have to discontinue PSVR. So just we tried, and just there's not a market for VR.
Yeah. Yeah. Apparently, the people who I will look at on Twitter who say this is a good deal, say that because the tech is really good, like they look at I guess the specs and everything and go, I would pay 550 for that. I would. But the problem I see right now is that for that type of thing to work in the market it is in, and for it to be a success, you need more than those who are already going to buy it in the first place. You're going to need people who are going to look at that and say, I need to get that. And I want it. I want it. And it should be accessible to them in order to get it. To spend about $1,100 or close to $1,200, including tax, to get the full kit is such a price hindrance. And on top of that as well, and I know you were a big PSVR fan, so you were a fan. To not have it be backwards compatible with the original PSVR games is a kick to the gut to people who already have those headsets, because now you're telling them, okay, well, the games that you have, you need to keep your PSVR set because it's not going to work on the PSVR 2. And maybe they'll do the right thing and they'll give you free updates for those games to play on PSVR 2.
Actually, I do have a point to that.
Go
So
ahead.
after the initial backlash, when people were just like, "Oh, fucking really?" Just all of my original PSVR stuff is not going to be compatible. This is bullshit.
Mhm.
Sony, I think a few weeks after, ended up doing kind of like a real quiet announcement on like I think Twitter and other social media channels, going, "Hey, we'll be working with developers who want to implement an upgrade program to upgrade their titles to PSVR, and it'll be up to the developers whether or not they want to provide you a free PSVR 2 copy for free." So there's that. But again, the key word is in how Sony worded it, which is it's up to the developer. So
Right.
if the developer is like a tiny indie operation, then more than likely they're going to say, hey, we are going to need your help to basically keep the lights on. So we're going to ask like maybe 50% off of the launch price for anyone who owned the original PSVR 1 version
Yeah.
and all, or hey, we can't afford to give discounts, so everyone's paying the same price for the PSVR 2 version. So you're going to either have a situation like that, and if that happens, I can see some people being real quick to go keyboard warrior on the internet and go, "Oh my God, indie studio such and such, so greedy. How dare they demand yet another 20, 30, $40 for this PSVR game I paid for fucking years ago?" And
Right.
it's just going to be a PR nightmare for those tiny studios, unfortunately. Or I mean, if Sony really wants to own up on the goodwill, then maybe they help these studios and subsidize the cost and say, okay, well, we'll absorb the upgrade, the upgrades for any of your users who upgrade, but you need to give these users who want to get an upgraded copy like a short time frame of like 1 month, 3 month, maybe 6 months to claim their upgrade. And if they don't, then tough shit.
Yeah. See, that would be good in a goodwill sort of sense, but I don't see Sony doing that. Sony is still on its "we are the leader, therefore we can do whatever we want" kick right now. So there's nothing in the past few years that they've done that makes me think they are going to do that. And as much as PSVR was liked by a certain group of people, that group is fairly small. So it's not going to have the traction that it does online with, let's say, Horizon Forbidden West not having a free upgrade. It's not going to have that kind of backlash. So I don't see them doing that, to be completely honest.
Yeah, I'm of the same mind too. That I don't foresee Sony doing like a goodwill option and telling all the indie VR studios, hey, we'll subsidize the cost for any PSVR 2 upgrades or anything.
I personally see them reselling those games and saying, there's brand new features. Oh, updated graphics and $60 for Astrobot, please. I'm like, what? That's what I'm expecting. I'm expecting them to take the greatest hits of their PSVR catalog and go, we're going to make it shinier. It's going to have new features because of the new controller, and it's going to be like a brand new game, even though it's not. $60, please. That's what I think is what's going to happen on that one. The thing that I have another issue with, and this is in regards to an announcement that was happened today, and it's that Apple is rumored to be developing a new VR AR headset, and it's going to be priced between the range of $2,000 and $3,000. Now, why am I comparing the two? Well, Apple is a company that makes premium, depending on what your thought process is of Apple, they make premium services and premium products. And they have a captive fan base who will pay the extra money, regardless of not how much of a not good idea it is to pay for it. See their computers, their Mac computers, so they can spend, let's say, an extra $1,000 on something that you get the same specs when it comes to a PC. Around those lines, I would say. If you are getting closer to Apple territory than, say, MetaQuest territory, what exactly makes you think that you have the tech or that people will buy into it? Because I can see Apple people getting those headsets and being thrilled with it and being fine. Like, they have a captive audience, they'll do it. And the MetaQuest is cheap enough, even though they rose the price, but it's cheap enough where people want to get into VR. This is a good starting point. Who exactly is the PSVR 2 for?
And that's a good point. And really, the only type of person I can think that the PS VR 2 might be for is for the person who has a relatively old PC. When I say old, I mean something with maybe a GTX 1080
Yeah.
in their computer, and looking at the current graphic card prices, like NVIDIA's 4090 RTX being almost a whopping $1,600, and then going, okay, well, gonna need the best graphic card to to play VR games with no hitching and stuttering. Okay, so that's already 1600 out of my computer building budget that I've got to save to get this top tier graphic card. And then of course, the best PC gaming VR headset is the Valve Index. So yeah, that's yet another grand right down the tube right there. So
Yeah.
that's already $2,600 in tech, and that's not including your processor, your motherboard, your RAM, whatever else you need to build your PC. And so just the common gamer is going to look at these prices and go, wow, that's a lot of money to get VR that functions and works without any sort of hitching, lag, graphical drops, or anything like that. They may see the combination of a PS5 plus a PSVR 2 kit being massively under the 2,600 plus price tag that a Valve Index kit plus a RTX 4090 is going to cost, and they're just going to go, cool. So I can get top tier VR out of a PS5 and a PSVR 2. Okay, sold, done. Whereas with the Apple VR Air headset potentially being targeted in the $2,000 to $3,000 range, I think that headset's likely going to be more of like a corporate product, like some of the corporate VR headsets that you can find from like HTC, like the Valve or the HTC Vive Pro 2, which that one's marketed as more of like a corporate VR meeting sort of product,
or a metaverse product.
Yep, correct.
Okay. My thing, and you have some good points. You definitely do on that. My thing is, if they're going to price it premium, it better damn well be premium. Like, there cannot be a problem. There can't be one person who says, yeah, this is okay, but I've seen better on the lower priced VR headsets. Like, if there's someone who says, I have a Meta Quest and I got this and they look comparable, that's a failure. Like, you have to blow people away. You need to be able to say, if you want the best games with the best looking graphics on VR, you have to have this. No ifs, ands, or buts. That's my thing. Because if you don't have that and you're asking for a premium price, this is going to fail. And because most people are going to look at it and go, wait a minute, I can get the same games that look just as good on the Meta Quest? Why would I spend the $1,100 to get this headset when the $400 headset is just as good? Or maybe not just as good, but it doesn't have is not a big enough upgrade to warrant that. Like, they need to prove that those graphics and the way that it works is worth that cash. That's the only thing I can see right now to make this work. Because if this comes out of the gate, and it has to come out of the gate, If this doesn't come out of the gate with people being amazed, this is going to be one, I think, in 2 years, they're going to just mothball to a certain extent. So
I think really I'll just be curious to see how it pans out and everything, because I'm not going to lie, just I'm still very curious on PSVR 2, especially since I quite liked my PSVR 1 headset.
Yeah.
But yeah, just even for me, the price is a bit hard to swallow. Just the same price that I paid for my PS5 console, it's just kind of like, wow, man, that's kind of stiff.
No, it is. Like, and you can only do one thing on that VR headset, and like I said, it better be good, because if you're having that price that much, and on top of that you have to buy games, like, it has to be worth it. You better have amazing tech that no one has ever seen before, because if you don't, the comparisons are not going to be in Sony's favor on this. All right, let's move on to the next story. Phil Spencer, Zero, Kojima has been talking a lot about. Let's really dive into this. Kojima is always been known as a very cinematic and very clued in game developer who directly traces his influences to movies and music. He's always talked about making his own movie. He's always talked about doing things other than gaming, especially when he was with Konami. When all the things were going on with Metal Gear Solid, when he wanted to get out of that franchise. Okay? Well, he's come to talk about his need to want to create movies and music. That's pretty much what he said to a certain extent. But the reason why we're talking about today is the reaction, mostly to what people think about him wanting to make movies and music. But let's get your thoughts on it first here. What do you feel about Hideo Kojima wanting to make movies and music?
It's interesting, especially since if you follow him on any sort of social media accounts and stuff like that, he has like a ton of posts on like what movies he's watching or which movies that had an absolute impact on him because he's got like movie posters in his home and stuff like that. So he's always kind of been a big cinephile. So
Yes.
yeah, just it's kind of interesting with him wanting to broaden into movies and music and everything, especially since he's just had such a history with just being a major cinephile. But the real question is if the rubber will meet the road, especially because just unfortunately he's also had a reputation of just having scope creep and budgets just kind of swell up out of control. So it'll be a little bit hard to kind of find a patron or a financier who's going to be willing to kind of open up the purse strings and kind of help him fund a movie or a music album or something. But we've seen stranger things, so
Yeah. I mean, he could decide to use the engine that he has and make a movie out of that. He could decide that the sequel to Death Stranding is going to be a movie. He could decide to do a number of things when it comes to creativity. I think, honestly, and he has not said anything about this, so this is my speculation, I think he's noticing the lack of creativity in the gaming industry. I think he's noticing how much harder it is for someone to go outside the box to tell stories. And he just seems like a creative person who wants to do something ballsy. He wants to do something very different. Maybe something uncomfortable. Maybe something that will make people uneasy. I use the example as Metal Gear Solid 5 Ground Zeroes. Do you remember what happened to Paz at the end of Ground Zeroes?
yes, it's been years, but I kind of remember.
Yeah. He seems like a director and a creative person who wants to branch out to do different things. And Death Stranding is an example of that, really. But unfortunately, to get the cash, you have to make a game fun. You have to make it engaging. You have to do something where somebody is enjoying themselves. And when that's the case, it's very hard to have someone sit down to play a 20-hour game where you're going to feel sad, depressed, angry, upset, and maybe want to think for 20 hours. And I think that's what he wants to do. I think he wants to make a game or a property that is more in line with the heroes of what he finds in cinema. And when he talks about influences and movies that he's into, there are some arty films. There are some tough films that he watches that he's into. There are films that people have never even heard of, that people won't even give a chance because they're either weird or they're upsetting or they're just not... They're not something that you want to sit down with a bowl of popcorn and watch. These are things that you have to prepare yourself for. And I think he wants to do something like that. And he's realizing you can't do it in games right now. And at this point, he may never be able to. And I think he wants to get that creative vision out in some way. And it might just have to be outside of games.
That could be a definite reason, especially just I know some of the casual lay folks have criticized some of the stuff that had been nominated from past Game Awards as being, just too boring, too predictable, and then in extreme cases, even flat out accusing stuff of just being proverbial Oscar bait and everything.
Right.
So maybe maybe it's just him wanting to kind of shake up the landscape and everything with something a little bit more evocative of cinema. But yeah, I think it'll just be interesting to see if he manages to kind of realize his vision and everything, because a lot of Kojima stuff is very, very visionary.
Yeah.
So I mean, there's that, but at the same time, just a lot of the development history for some of his past games, they have had to deal with scope creep issues and
Yeah.
everything.
Definitely.
So yeah, just that's where things get interesting. And I mean, yeah, he's kind of the leader of his own brand new company, but hopefully he's got somebody on his staff who is willing to kind of push back and say, um, "Hey, I know you want to do this endeavor, but maybe scale thing A, B, or C back a little bit, or else we're just not going to have time to do like a clean implementation on this thing you want to do."
Yeah. He's talked about this upcoming project as almost like a new medium. Okay? And he's said this before about other games where he wants to make something out like that is different than anything you've ever played. And that scares the shit out of financiers. It does. Because they want safe, they want comfortable, they want to make sure that it sells. They want to make sure that it makes money. And people who have money know that challenging things do not sell. They just don't. They are often better games, movies, books, music, whatever, but they do not sell. They just do not. Because most people who want to play these games and watch movies do it for entertainment purposes, and that's it. And gaming, and we've talked about this in private, gaming is something that the common public does not look at as art. They don't. They just don't. And Kojima, in my opinion, is the closest to an artist or an auteur than any game developer or game director out there. He's the only one where I would say has a singular vision, and you can identify as a Kojima game as soon as you play the game. Like, you recognize, oh, this is a Kojima game, because he has certain things that he does in his games and how he sets it up and everything. That's the way Kojima is, and he's an auteur like that. And he's earned that because Metal Gear Solid changed the gaming industry around that time. I think he's starting to realize he's closing in on that rope, that people are going to start limiting their budgets to him. That they're not going to give him a blank check every time. That they're going to ask for certain concessions and for certain things, or they're going to ask him to build a specific game to what they want and slap his name on it. That's what most, I think, developers and game developers and game console developers want from him. And he just seems like a person that does not want to be tied down. So I think at this point, I would not be surprised if the new project that he's been talking about with Elle Fanning and Shinori Katsuna, I would not be surprised if that's a movie. Because I think he's going to be I'm telling you, he's going to get to a certain point that he's going to realize that his creative vision is not going to be accepted. And either he has to make it into a movie, or he's just going to not do it. And he does not seem like a person that's going to give up on it. I think that is what he's going to do. I think Kojima Productions will do other games, but it'll be directed by other people.
Yeah.
But Kojima himself will probably step away from gaming and go into movies. I think that's what's going to happen here.
Yeah, and that's a plausible scenario too, especially just with where gaming is going. I mean, you kind of nailed the point that I have to make to some of my IRL gaming friends when they go, God, just I wish Gaming Studio A would make a game that's more ambitious, more bold, more interesting, and then having to kind of bring them back to reality and say, well, problem, because gaming studio A is publicly traded on the New York Stock Exchange, and they got to do shit that makes their balance sheet looks good.
Yeah.
And if whatever game idea isn't something that just rings all the money bells, then they're not going to do it, because they're going to worry about their stockholders going, okay, well, you want to do this passion project that's going to lose you money? Okay, well, we're going to exercise our rights as the board to sue the entire leadership and install the people we want on the board.
Yeah, and that's definitely something that could happen, especially if, especially in a public traded company, they can turn around and basically, well, we're not going to fund that, or here's a little bit of money, do it with that budget, and you would have to come up with guarantees that it will sell, and there's just no guarantee to it. And the other problem is, as well, gamers themselves, okay? Gamers themselves don't want it. I can't believe I'm talking about this. I got into an argument with somebody on Twitter. Surprise! Surprise! Basically stating that games will never be considered mainstream art. And there's two reasons for it. One is that a good amount of gamers don't want it to be art. They don't want messages. They don't want profound stories. They don't want to be sad. They just want to have fun. Just let me shoot the guy, dude. That's all I care about. I just want to play Madden. I don't want that to be art. And there's enough gamers out there who feel that way. And then there's, of course, people who will say it is mainstream art because it makes X money. That is not what dictates art. Art, mainstream, I think, and I think you feel the same way. Video games is an art. It is an art form. And it can, and there is an artistic license, and you need an artistic vision to make a game. Do you agree?
Yeah.
Okay.
I actually have kind of a phrase that I use when anyone kind of either argues for or against video games being art, which the phrase boils down to, can video games be art? Yes. Are all video games art? No.
I think that's a little unfair. I think they're art in a different way. If you're looking at art in the sense of, let's say, a book is art, a movie is art, music is art, where it makes you feel emotions, and it makes you think about things, and it makes you be contemplative on your life, and stuff like that. No. Very, 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 very few games do that. Very few. But the way to balance a game, to get the jump of a character right, to make the shooting feel well, to do those things, takes an artistic vision. And in that aspect, gaming is art. In that aspect. But to explain that to a layperson is a fruitless endeavor. It really is. We discussed this before the podcast. I can say to somebody, I think movies are art. And one person can say, bullshit. Movies aren't art. Movies are entertainment. And then I can point at, oh yeah? Schindler's List, Apocalypse Now, Blade Runner. And then they'll go, oh yeah, I can see your point. Can we say that about games? No, we really can't. I mean, you could say, one that I was floored by when people say, oh, this proves that games is art. Shadow of the Colossus. It's an interesting looking game, but if you put that to, let's say, a lay person who looks at paintings or watches movies and consider them art, they'll look at that and go, how is this art? How? How is this art? It isn't. I will say this, Zero. It's an ignorance thing. I will say that. It's an ignorance thing. But in order for it to be mainstream art, and for it to be mainstream art, the collective has to agree that it is art, that there is an artistry, and you have to be an artist to make it. And the collective does not believe that about games. When they think video games, they think Fortnite, Modern Warfare, they think Madden, FIFA, they think those games. If you turn around and say video games are art, and they go, Fortnite's art? Really? What are you going to do then? And I can say to them, well, what about Gone Home? What about that? Like, what the fuck is that shit? Like, who
Yeah.
cares? And then if you turn around and say it is art because it makes money, the games that make money are the ones that aren't art. So you're kind of stuck here. So, like, there is no cultural touchstone that is considered artistic when it comes to gaming. Like with movies, there is. Like, you have The Godfather, you have Goodfellas, you have, you know what I mean. Like, there are films that even people who aren't into films can say, yeah, that's art. Games don't have that yet. You have to be deep into video gaming to realize that it is art. And we're also at a point now, back to the Kojima thing, where gaming hasn't had the renaissance that film had, where a film studio can look at a movie and go, this isn't going to make any money, but this will give us prestige. This will give us something that will attract other people to want to work with us. Gaming doesn't have that. Okay? If it had that, Kojima would still be with Konami making games for the rest of his fucking life. And if Kojima can be tossed aside, anybody can be tossed aside. The gaming industry in itself does not care about the artistic achievement of video games. They care about sales. They care about money. The only innovations that happened in the past 10 years is either a game loads faster or they charge you in different ways for the same game. Those are the innovations. Okay? There are no artistic innovations. I mean, I still have to remind myself when people say, oh, video games aren't art, and I keep having to remind myself, oh, the game that you'd use as an example came out 10 years ago, which is Gone Home. And even then, that could be argued that it's really not. I don't know. Like, back to Kojima, I think he's realizing that the gaming industry doesn't value artistry. It doesn't value deep thinking or deeply thoughtful properties and stories. They just want an excuse to shoot a guy in the head or to collect the chest. That's all it is in the end. And I think he is going to come down to a point where he's just going to say, you know what? I need to stretch my creative muscles. I might have to do it outside of gaming. What do you think about my rant?
Yeah, I mean, the points are all salient, and I agree with most, if not all of them, because just they kind of line up with just with how I feel, especially since, as odd as this may sound to some listeners and everything, a lot of my video gaming taste broadened up when I was doing freelance video game journalism and stuff like that. Because before that, just I was kind of like the general everyman gamer. RPG's good, shooters good, multiplayer games awesome because I can group up with friends, grab a couple beers out of my fridge, and just join lobbies online and shoot dudes while being either buzzed or drunk. And that was kind of how I was. And then when I got into the video game journalism business for a little bit, I would be assigned games that were completely outside of my wheelhouse and typical genres. And typically because someone at the review outlet that I was working with would be like, oh, well, no one wants to play this game, so you get to play it. And I'd just be like, probably the wrong person for this, but yeah, sure, why the hell not?
Yeah.
And then just I would end up finding kind of an artistic appreciation for some of these games and everything. But yeah, just really there is a bit of an identity crisis with regards to video games being art or not, because just right now, I mean, like you said, the biggest innovations are either, hey, how do we make gamers pay out the nose yet again after buying a $70 premium retail game, or at least in some cases, hey, let's do the Disney live remake treatment, but just remaster games and everything.
Yeah.
And in some cases, the remasters are they barely touch anything.
Yeah.
Um, and that ends up being a little irritating too, because it's just like, really, this is your remaster? Hey, let's just bump the resolution of the assets to 1080p or 4K. No quality of life changes, no system changes, no maybe potentially reimagining of the game, because in the original edit of the game you couldn't tell all the side stories you wanted to tell. Okay, well, kind of a ripoff for you charging $70 for this extremely light remake, but you do you guys.
Yeah. No, you're absolutely right. Basically, the need for the remake or remaster is we can sell it to you again on this system. That's it. That's all it is. That's the justification for the remake. Let's do a thought experiment, shall we? I've been thinking about this since I read the story. And I want to do a thought experiment with you. I'm going to describe 2 games. Tell me if you think they're interesting, okay?
All right.
Okay, so here we go. I'm thinking about a game. It's a business management sim game, okay? The story is that you're in the middle of a war, okay? And in this war, you are running a business making cars. You're making basically cars. But your crew, the people you had, went to war. But you are finding that people are trying to escape the war and not get killed. So in a humanitarian conquest, in the game, you are searching out for people to save. And in turn, those people work in your factory to make cars. And your job in the game is to save people, make your business profitable, and save as many people as possible. You can win the game by one of 3 means. By saving as many people as you can, by being a very profitable business, or you die. Would you be interested in playing that game? Would that be an interesting game to you?
Sounds like an interesting premise. It would be a bit outside my wheelhouse, but it sounds like an interesting enough premise.
Do you think others might be interested in a game like that?
Honestly, as far as like broad mainstream appeal?
Not mainstream appeal, just gamers who are into those type of games. Do you think they would be interested in that?
Possibly, mostly because just I think with stuff like management games, it's all about the systems. I mean, if the systems are pretty good, then yeah, just I could see a bunch of like management sim nerds just going, "Oh my god, I gotta play this game like now."
Okay. So you think there would be a fan base that would be interested in that game?
Yeah, potentially.
Okay. Here's game number 2. Schindler's List, the game. How do you think that would go down?
Oh, wow.
Do you think people would want it? Do you think people would actually want to play it?
As far as people wanting it, I would hesitate to say anyone would
Be
want
honest.
it.
Be honest.
Mostly because of just the fact that the topic is a bit depressing,
Mhm.
and a lot of people play video games for the escapism, just to
Right.
kind of escape the drama and the problems that they have in the real world and everything. So I just think something like that would just be very hard to find a market for, because a lot of people, I would assume, would just go, wow, that's depressing. I don't want to play something depressing. I want to play something fun or interesting.
Right. Okay. But you think people will play number 1 but not play number 2?
Potentially, yes.
Okay. What if I told you they were the same game?
Interesting.
I just told you the plot of Schindler's List. Okay? And that's my point. Challenging people, okay, is not a bad thing. People deep down do want to be challenged. But these companies are very afraid to do so because they hear online, I just want to have fun. I just want to have fun. But how many people thought the No Russian level was interesting? Or even despite them being a little uncomfortable, still played and loved the game? Or had a different feeling that they didn't realize they had when playing a game? You make the game interesting. No matter how depressing or no matter how uncomfortable you may be, people will be interested in playing those games. Okay? And that's something that the industry needs to start realizing, or else artists like Kojima and other directors and other game makers who want to stretch their creative vision are just going to realize that they're not going to be able to do that, and they're going to have to go elsewhere. And you're going to have the same things just circle over and over and over again ad nauseum until the industry collapses. If I can market a game to make it sound interesting, I'm pretty sure someone can do the same thing with something uncomfortable. Like, number one, the first game I told you about, you said, I could see that selling. But when I mentioned it's Schindler's List the game, you pretty much said, no way, that's not selling. It's all in the way you market it. It's all in the way that you present it. Instead of saying, like, Schindler's List the game, it's a story about hope. It's a story about saving the common man. It's about teaching the importance of saving your humanity. There will people be interested in that, but they're too afraid to do so because they hear the masses saying, I just want to have fun. You can make it fun, but you can teach them something too. It's not a bad thing. Then again, also, people don't want things to be political either, and there is a chance something could be political by how someone interprets it. So that's another issue. Like, it's a mess. It really is. I don't know. You have any more to add?
No.
No? What'd you think of my thought experiment? Interesting?
Oh yeah, I mean it was certainly interesting and everything, but I mean like you mentioned, just unfortunately, I think the focus group testing just says, hey, gamers just want fun, want shooty bang bang, less political messages, more action and just cool shit to do. So yeah, just it's unfortunately something that I could see why just someone like Kojima would maybe say or maybe have a feeling like there's a bit of malaise in the video game industry.
Yeah.
So
I think people want it done well. They don't want it ham-fisted. They don't want it to be obvious. They don't want it to be like an obvious message that you're trying to get across. They want it because if it's done well enough where it's still entertaining and there is a message, for most people it'll fly right over their heads. Or if they catch it, they'd be like, huh, that's interesting. I never thought of it that way. The point is not to just throw up the message, okay? It is to let people, it is basically to get people to come up with the conclusion themselves. That's what you want to do. But the writing in gaming, the writing in gaming is so bad. It's so bad that they don't know to do that. They just don't know to do that. Until writing improves and until companies reward those writers for better games and better contracts, you're going to get the same old shit until this industry pretty much collapses. Let's move on to the next topic. It was announced today that Remedy is developing Control 2. This was just announced this week. Control 1 went on to sell about 2 million copies, which Remedy themselves says it's not a big hit, but they were happy with the sales. They were also happy with the awards they got, but it wasn't a big seller to them. But they are going ahead with a second Control anyway. Zero, how do you feel about Control, the Control sequel being announced and in development right now? Along with, are they doing Alan Wake 2 as well in there?
yeah, I think they are doing Alan Wake 2, though Alan Wake 2 there is a bit of concern that just because of the fact that the Alan Wake 1 remake didn't sell as well as they were hoping.
Right.
So that's kind of a problem that's got its own issues too. It's interesting to see that they signed on with 505 Games, especially considering that 505 Games really bought the whole next gen upgrade for Control. Uh, that kind of burned a lot of people who bought the Ultimate Edition version of the game on PS4 and Xbox One. Hey, I'm all for more Control because I kind of like the um, wild and wacky SCP files vibe that they were going for.
Hmm.
But yeah, just it'll be interesting to see if they end up having some serious talks with 505 Games on how to manage expectations and things. Because yeah, just I just remember just how bad the fallout was in the short term with the ninth gen upgrades.
Yeah,
Because yeah, just there were some people who were just outright pissed.
yeah. And I understand because that was a screwed up situation. I think it's interesting that they're doing a sequel to this game. I thought I overheard that this was part of the Alan Wake franchise. To a certain, I thought I heard that. I might be wrong. I'll correct.
It's got some lore beats that sort of touch to the Alan Wake
Okay.
universe, but I don't think it is 100%. Hey, this is 100% part of the Alan Wake universe and everything.
I think the problem with Control, in a sense, is that it got great reviews. It got fantastic reviews on PC, and on around the time too when ray tracing was starting to pick up, I think ray tracing was just starting with Control. Right? It was the game that if you had a ray tracing graphics card that you play because you want to see how ray tracing looks.
Yep. Yeah, I think that was the game that both Nvidia and AMD had advertised that it had some interactions with their technologies. I think
Okay.
AMD had advertised that it was one of the games that used some of the hair effects technology. So just you had some like detailed animations on like some of the physics works and stuff like that. And then of course Nvidia was advertising the ray tracing piece of, hey, check out the sweet ray tracing and stuff like that.
Okay. Um, I think this will probably sell better than Control 1 because they are now going to make the game with ray tracing enabled on all consoles. And the unfortunate problem is, especially with you PC Master Race people, is that games just sell more on console. And when it started going out that the console versions of the game was essentially borked, people didn't buy it and people didn't play it as much. So, and as quality as the game is, if it's not running well on the consoles, it's just not going to sell. I don't care how many people have PCs. You would have to have a beefy PC to play it anyway. So if it's not running on consoles very well, it wasn't going to sell very well. And I think 2 million for what it was is pretty damn good. So I think if the quality of the game stays the same from what it was on 1, or maybe a little bit better, I think it will sell double the amount that Control 1 did. I think that's more than reasonable to think. I think a lot of people did want to play it, but didn't have the PC to play it. And then once the Ultimate Edition came out on other consoles, other games were more interesting, and Control was just too old at the time, and that's really it. You couldn't do much of anything. Remedy hasn't really had that big of a lot of hits recently, have they? I mean, didn't Remedy also do Quantum Break, which did not do very well?
Yeah, so that was another game that had an interesting premise, and I think what made it also interesting was the fact that it had kind of like a TV show element to it, where some of the chapters would be interspersed up with kind of like a TV show episode showing like because you chose path A or path B, you would get like this particular video episode of just like real life actors like acting out just what happened because of the choices you made. So super interesting premise, but again, it just wasn't a real big seller because of just the fact that at the time, Quantum Break was exclusively Xbox One thing.
Yeah.
And of course, this was early in the Xbox One's lifespan. And unfortunately, it didn't really get to escape the poor reputation of, oh, you have to register your discs online and everything, even though they clarified it before launch. Hey, we're not doing that thing anymore. We learned our lesson, fucked up. We're not going to do that whole thing anymore. But the reputational damage was done. So unfortunately, just since the damage was done, just it was one game that looked cool, but people didn't give it a chance because at the time it was an Xbox exclusive. I think eventually it ended up getting a PC version, and then you got like a cross-buy sort of deal that would later happen. So so there was that. But yeah, just unfortunately that was a game that was kind of a victim of just the poor reputation of the Xbox brand at the time. So
Yeah.
just that was that. But yeah, unfortunately, just they've had some great games that just really didn't pay off, and then you have some games that they partnered up on, and either the game reputation was just bad or just plain terrible. Most recently, they did a partnership with I forget which Korean video game studio it was, but it was for the free-to-play first-person shooter Crossfire X that was coming out to both Xbox and PC for the West, with Microsoft helping with the localization and everything. Remedy was actually hired to do the single-player campaign for Crossfire X.
Oh,
and
yeah.
Unfortunately, that was a really bad single-player campaign, and
Yeah.
it had its share of problems. And unfortunately, just I think critically, it got panned. So yeah, just they haven't been and just batting a great record for the last couple of years. And while Control has sold pretty well, just with just kind of all the weirdness behind it, it didn't sell like complete gangbusters or anything.
Is Remedy at risk if their games start to not sell very well? Like if Control 2 isn't a massive hit, are they at risk of being sold? I know that they do contracts with Microsoft, with Rockstar, and now with Tencent, or with Epic Games, I should say. They are doing partnerships with those. They're doing a partnership with Rockstar to remake Max Payne 1 and 2, and they're doing and they have a 2-game deal with Epic Games to do their new games exclusively with them. If they start not selling a lot, is there a chance that this company gets sold?
Possibly, especially since some of their IPs are quite valuable, especially just Control. I would say if they do get put at risk of being sold and everything, I would imagine just Microsoft would want to be first in line to just get their hands on the Control IP. But that's my speculation, and it's a moonshot level of speculation too. So for anyone who kind of want a frame of reference, what I mean by moonshot, we're talking if hell freezes over and pigs fly sort of chances.
Is Control an important IP for them? Because it only sold 2 million, and it did get awards, but even that is not indicative of something that's a valuable property. That's more of a boutique property.
The reason I say it's important is because Microsoft went so hard on the marketing when the Series X consoles came out, with purchasing tons and tons of ads for Control running on Series X, going, "Hey, Series X has some great games. Look at Control. Look at how awesome this game is." It was constantly in the limelight for a lot of the Xbox Series X advertising. So that's my thought process on the whole thing.
To me, their important games are games that essentially other people own. I mean, Max Payne, I think, is the example that I would give. I think that's their most important game. But somebody already owns them. I think Rockstar owns that
Yeah,
game.
they sold
So
the rights to Rockstar.
yeah, so I I think they're kind of in trouble right now. I mean, they may not be in financial trouble. They might have enough money to actually, you know, to do what they need to do. But how long are they going to get the money when their games aren't selling very well? I mean, they can be beautiful looking and they may run well, but if they're not selling, I don't see people wanting to put more money into this company unless they start doing things that actually sells. So I think Control 2 might just be a make or break thing. And if they don't sell really well in the next time, I can see them in a potential buying bid for for either Microsoft, Sony, Rockstar, Take Two, or something along those lines to purchase them outright, or they might get embraced. Who knows? So
Yeah.
this might be an important one for them that they would have to get right. Because if they don't, I can see some problems brewing ahead. Zero, we are at the end of the podcast. Before we go, I have a question for you.
All right.
All right, so a lot of games were released this past week. Of course, God of War Ragnarok, I think, is the main game. But we're not going to talk about that shit. No. We're going to talk about a game compilation that came out this week called Atari 50. And yeah, a compilation disc, a game compilation is nothing new. It's really nothing to celebrate, really. It's just a reason to sell back ROMs to you. But the reason why I'm mentioning this is I've been reading up on Atari 50, and I'll be honest with you. I am not a fan of Atari games. I like a few Atari games, but I'm not a big fan of Atari. I didn't grow up with it. I grew up with NES. But watching some of the stuff in this Atari compilation is fascinating. And what they did is not only are you able to play games from Atari's past, they also have a plethora of documentaries, interviews, and all sorts of other promotional items, news stories, like all sorts of stuff that highlight the history of Atari. Zero, my question is this. I thought about this when I saw this. And I thought a good question to ask you is this. What game series or anything do you feel should get the Atari 50 treatment?
One of the ones that's very high on my list would be a lot of the Quintet and Enix RPGs, and maybe even some of Square Enix's, or excuse me, SquareSoft, some of the early SquareSoft games that are in their back catalog that they just never seem to remember or leverage. So stuff like, your Treasure Hunter G's, your Bahamut Lagoons, and just do just a insane mega compilation. Just having stuff like Illusion of Gaia, Terra Enigma, Soul Blazer, ActRaiser 1 and 2, list goes on. Just do something like that, subcontracted to Digital Eclipse, if Square doesn't want to do the work in-house, and just have them do just kind of just this mega like Criterion Collection style treatment of the games. Show off design docs. Just maybe try to get Japanese transcripts of interviews with some of these studios and producers, directors, and stuff like that, because likely magazines like Famitsu probably have archives of interviews with these folks, and then pay somebody to help localize and translate the articles into English. That way, just the English-speaking public can kind of read these interviews that they may not have been aware even existed. So, just would love to see that from the Square Enix camp of things. Just a nice sort of mega collection of some of these games that they just have seemed to have forgotten. thankfully they have remembered the Secret of Mana stuffs, because we got the collection of Mana stuff recently. But
Yes.
yeah, just I would love to see kind of a Enix Quintet Squaresoft from the archives sort of mega collection of the games that they just kind of shoved to the back of the vault and have long forgotten, and just make a crazy mega collection. I think it would be really freaking cool.
All right, so you went like obscure. You went
Yeah.
like okay, that is interesting. It would be interesting to me. I think there were other Square games that, of course, the Final Fantasy and Dragon Quest games that I think would make fantastic collections. Of course, they'll end up just selling them all piecemeal. That's just how they roll. So I think that might not be a bad idea. I'm gonna go. I'm gonna go the Mario series. I'm gonna go Mario 1, 2, 3, World, and Yoshi's Island. And I think it would be interesting to listen to Shigeru Miyamoto talk about all these games before he retires. Like, do a special collection. Do like a call it a Miyamoto collection, where it is a limited time run that you put those games in there, but it's chock to the brim of interviews with people that were into localizing or doing the marketing in the U.S. and Japan. Speak to Miyamoto at length about these games. The design docs, everything. I think this would sell really well and it would be fascinating to watch. It is a shame that Iwata is gone and wasn't able to have something like this, because I think he would have been fascinating to listen to when it came to all this. But I think that would be something I think that not only I would be interested in, but I think would sell. Another property that I think would make a fascinating documentary, the Tomb Raider series.
Oh yeah, that would be a great one, especially for anyone who is really curious on the lineage and everything.
I mean, any game that was able to have a Playboy spread should make a fascinating documentary.
Yeah.
That's the one that got a play. What's that? Blood Rain. Was it Tomb Raider Blood Rain that had the Playboy spread?
I think it was Blood Rain.
Huh.
I think. Don't quote me on that.
Oh yeah, that's right. Because Tomb Raider was the rumor of the nude code.
Yeah.
You never saw anything nude, but for some reason, the developers who made Blood Rain thought it was a good idea to make a nude spread of fucking Blood Rain. Good lord. But yeah, like I think, and Tomb Raider is an interesting property. I don't like the games particularly. I like the remakes, but I understand why people enjoy the old ones and why Lara Croft was a very influential and very interesting character around that time. And I would love to see a documentary or a roundtable discussion with the developers, journalists, historians over Tomb Raider and its importance. Like, I don't like the old Tomb Raider games, but I'd actually buy that just to see that stuff. And that's what I really thought the Atari 50 was interesting, because I looked at it and goes, I kind of want to buy this to watch all this stuff. I didn't, because I'm not going to play the games, so I'll buy it like when it's at the price of a DVD. But I thought that was fascinating, and that's something that I think more companies should do to honor its legacy, is to show everything they did to make that game and that game series the way it is, and how it started, how the idea came across, why this is this way, and then forward on to. Any other things that you can think of?
Uh, this is me speaking purely just because I hate what the video game collectors market has become,
Mm-hmm.
but I would love, love, love to see a Legend of Zelda just mega collection, sort of either a Switch cartridge or whatever their next console ends up using, just mega collection that has like the original NES or Famicom Disk System ROM on it, which, for anyone who doesn't know, the Famicom Disk System version of the game actually has better music because
Yes.
it the Famicom Disk version of it actually has high quality audio files on it.
Hmm.
So the music and stuff sounds so different compared to the NES cartridge that we got here in the West. Um, but then to also have compilation on this mega compilation, just other stuff in there. So classics like Link to the Past, Link's Awakening DX for the Game Boy Color, the Game Boy Advance games, the DS games, the N64 Ocarina of Time, and then the master level edit of all the dungeons and stuff, Jor's Mask, and just go completely freaking bonkers with this thing. I mean, I would love to see that, mostly because of the fact that the GameCube Anniversary Collection disc is now so exorbitantly expensive now, and that it's pretty much just a collector's curiosity at this point.
Yeah.
And I think the worst part of it is I had my disc completely stolen out from under my nose, and it's one of the few video gaming possessions that I would love to get back. That and actually, I can't say that I'm looking for that anymore because I recently bought it a while ago. But Thunder Force 5 for PlayStation 1 was another one of my precious video game memories that I recently bought earlier this year.
Nice.
That was stolen out from under me. I paid way too much for it, but I'm just happy to have it.
Yeah. I would not mind to get the Zelda series on one cartridge and have a bunch of documentaries on. I think the key thing here is that I want the documentary stuff. I want the supplements that Atari 50 has. That's the key thing. Because if we get that stuff, I'd be super happy to rebuy these older games that I have. Like if they turn around, because I still have Bushido Blade 1 and 2. I still have Vagrant Story. If they would have turned around and did a Vagrant Story remaster with all that special features and documentaries, I'd buy it for $60. I'd have no problem doing that. So, yeah, like I think this right here is how they should do compilations and do these remasters. Like, celebrate the game that you are remastering. Give us the reasons why this deserves to be lionized like this. Why it deserves to have this type of remaster, or it deserves to have this compilation disc, and explain why it's so important. Don't just fart out the ROMs and put some pretty art on there. Do what these guys did with Atari 50, because this was fantastic, and I really want to support it when the money is right.
Yeah, Digital Eclipse is some people have gone to kind of call them the video gaming industry's version of the Criterion Collection, and I would say that that's kind of apt on that comparison, because I think it was sometime either last year or 2 years ago. The Samurai Showdown collection was one of the freebies that was given away on the Epic Game Store.
Mm-hmm.
And that one was actually completely remastered by Digital Eclipse, and it has a whole bunch of design docs and a whole bunch of like really, really cool things for just the hardened Samurai Showdown fan and everything. Unfortunately, they didn't have anything like interviews or anything like that, but just the fact that it basically came with like this mega art book, proverbially, just in the game, I thought was really cool for anyone who's just a stone nut for the Samurai Showdown stuff. My top choices would be just a Zelda Mega Collection, or a Square Enix From the Vault Forgotten Titles Mega Collection of just some of their smaller and obscure stuff.
Okay. All right. All right, well, on that note, we are at the end of this episode of the Capital Games Podcast. Tune in next week where we discuss the going-ons and happenings of the video game industry. I am The Wiz.
And I'm Zero, and we will see you next week.
Hey, you took my line. Bye, guys.